Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Councillor West and everybody else. Thank you for your attention. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Corporate Governance Committee. And members are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed again on the Council's YouTube pages as previously. Have any apologies for absence tonight, please?
Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Hodgson-Jones, and Councillor Gray will be arriving a few moments late.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, minutes of the previous meeting. Are you all in agreement that I sign the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on the 30th of November 2022? Those in favour? Yeah. Thank you. Agenda item 2. Do members have any interest to declare, please? No members' interests. Thank you. Agenda item 3, update on Code of Conduct and Register of Disclosable Pecuniary Interests. I'd like to invite Lisa Jablonska to present the Code of Conduct and Register of Disclosable Interests report. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you're probably mostly familiar with seeing this report now. It's an update report that we get on a regular basis. As a committee, you're responsible for maintaining high standards of conduct for elected members and monitoring the code of conduct. So you're responsible for district councillors and town and parish councillors as well. So we have a duty to maintain a register of disclosable pecuniary interest, DPIs, for district and town and parish councils. So the report itself just details the current level of DPI returns for town and parish councils, and that's listed in Appendix 1. And again, each town and parish council has got a duty to adopt a code of conduct. And again, whilst there's no legal obligation for us to for them to notify the monitoring officer that they've adopted a code of conduct, we do maintain a record. And again, the records of those that have indicated have adopted a code can be seen in Appendix 2. So again, it's just indicating that all 71 town and parish councils have adopted a code of conduct. The other thing is just drawing attention to paragraph 3.3 in the report, just gives you a high-level summary of just the individual DPIs. So the Appendix 1 details 562 out of a total of 652 DPIs have been received. But just to put that into context, there are still 83 vacant seats on town and parish councils. So these were either outstanding from the May 2022 elections or as a result of any casual vacancies in year as well. So in effect, there's only 7 DPIs, disclosable pecuniary interest outstanding. It's always a movable fee. So as soon as we publish the agenda, it's pretty much out of date because inevitably we get notified of vacancies on town and parish councils on a regular basis. So, but again, that's not to say that as a Dem Services team, we do regularly chase those town and parish councils to ensure that they supply the DPI so we can publish them on our website as well. So again, in addition to that, town and parish councils got that responsibility of publishing the relevant information. So as I say, it's an update report. Again, happy to take any questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Do members have any questions for Lisa? Councillor West.
I just smile, Chairman, when our role is for ensuring there's good conduct. Why I started the meeting this evening, not sure whether I'm a poacher term gamekeeper, but bearing that in mind, Chairman, I do not think it's good that we've only got 7 outstanding. When you consider how many councillors there is, I think that's great credit to the clerks. Thank you.
If I may, through you, Chairman, Chair, sorry, my habit, sorry. Again, I would put that down to we've had a Simon Rees join the team really in terms of, so he's been quite determined, shall we say, to try and to push town and parish councils to ensure that the returns are up to date. So he's been on it, and so he's been really good at getting the returns. So we are pleased with that. But as I said, it's a movable feast, and I say inevitably we will never be 100% accurate, but we will attempt to do that anyway. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other questions for Lisa? No. Okay, thank you. In that case, we just note the report, noting the recommendation, and we will now move on to item 4, which is the implementation of internal audit actions. And I'd like to ask Deborah Moss to present this report. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, can you hear me? Yeah. So this is the report that you get every meeting. The main bulk narrative within the report is mainly the same each time, unless there's any improvements or changes that have been made on our side. So I'll just draw your attention really to the executive summary, which shows that 57% of actions that were due have been implemented in the last 12 months. That's only 27% within target, but 57, we should take those because at least they're implemented. And 22% haven't been, so they're counted as overdue in the last 12 months. Added to that, there's some that are older than 12 months, so adding those in, it's actually 26 that were overdue. If I then draw your attention to Appendix 1, which is the list of those 26 outstanding actions, and then the services update that they've provided you with to say where they are, the status, any blockages. You'll notice on there that there's quite a few. After sending this report out to people, it sort of stirs up quite a lot of action, understandably. So I've put at the bottom, there's quite a few now that have actually been closed as a result of issuing this out to services. So 7 have been closed. 4 are due to be closed and replaced with another action, which we reported last meeting. And there's 15 actions that are in progress as well. I did, because so many people had then closed them off in anticipation of this meeting, we did run another report this week. So actually the percentages are a lot more favourable now. So whilst the report says it's 57, it's actually 67% now, and 33% haven't been implemented. So it's a little bit better, and there's only 17 overdue up to the end of November as well. I don't know. I don't think there's any particular ones that I want to draw your attention to. As I said, the wording in the update is the services words. I haven't changed any of it, so that's their status report to you as to why they've done something or why they haven't. It does look very much that everything's in progress. Just some of them haven't met the time target. So that's really all I can report to you. Do you have any questions?
Councillor Peck, question? Yep.
There we go. Firstly, apologies, Chair, for being slightly delayed by the railway, but I'm here. I nearly missed the meeting by the looks of things, so I won't delay too long. But I just wanted to ask Deborah whether there's anything. I mean, you mentioned there was nothing there that particularly concerned you. Is there anything sitting on that list that you're sitting there as our audit manager thinking, I really want to see that get done?
I think probably rather than wait for these prompts, they do get reminders. What we were thinking about doing is maybe issuing more reminders. So we've set a new one up where they get a reminder to say it's overdue now instead of beforehand. And without wanting to bombard them with one every hour, there's a possibility of setting them up routinely from the system to ask them to put an update in there or to remind them that they still have their action outstanding. Of course, it's not as sophisticated to know that they will have put the update in there. All it can do is say you're overdue, you haven't done it. So they might already have put a very good reason as to why they're not doing it, and then we don't want to annoy them by keep reminding them of the fact that they're overdue. So, but I think also, whilst it's management's responsibility to do the actions, I'm just providing the monitoring tool behind it. I think possibly there's more that management can do, maybe involve these conversations within their one-to-ones with the service managers rather than wait for the report to come to them before they start taking any action. But that's something for me to hopefully deal with in time.
Thank you, Deborah. Any further follow-up on that, Councillor Gray?
Thank you. More of a follow-up remark, really, for you, Chair. In that, I think you're absolutely right in that your job here is to look at the implementation of it here, and I wonder whether or not, and I'm kind of looking at my fellow panel members who might think I'm not going in the right direction here, but whether or not the report itself is quite functional in terms of what's been done, what's not been done, where it sits on a scale. I'm not sure that it provides committee members perhaps with the executive's view on what they think, and I think that's the point that you were making. Managers are responsible, and ultimately senior leaders are responsible for implementing these and seeing them. And I don't feel that we get a huge amount of commentary from that quarter as to we put this to one side because actually we've got these other issues that we need to be dealing with, but we're quite satisfied that there are controls in place that can deal with that. So I don't think it's obviously nothing to do specifically with this report, but it's whether or not we are satisfied as a committee that we've got that kind of background information, because there isn't anybody here this evening who can give other commentary to that. I mean, Karen, you can do some, but some of it sort of sits even above you, I think, in terms of the decision making. Just that was my observation, Chair. As I read through the report, I felt where's the commentary on the decision making around some of the decisions to live with risks that have been made.
Yeah, thank you. Karen, did you want to respond to that at all?
Well, I get your point about there's no commentary on there, and that I can assure you it is getting attention at senior leadership team level, and it is getting a lot more focus now. So the Risk and Controls Board picking up on actions there, and that is where the risk is being assessed and being escalated up to SLT if we don't believe we're getting the action that we need to close out serious risks.
Thank you. I mean, I think you raise a valid point. I think there's room for us to improve the quality of the information and the sort of sharing of it across the committee in terms of what's been done. I mean, that doesn't mean any dissatisfaction with what is being achieved. It's just, as you say, the visibility and the clarity of what's happening. I think we could explore how we can improve that further. Certainly, yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
I was just going to add that certainly since I joined, the focus has been to get these actions closed out and to mitigate the risk arising from them. I think now we've got them down to a more manageable level. Now is the time we can look at changing the reporting and perhaps giving you a little bit more insight.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which is first. Councillor Backwell, ladies first.
Thank you. Can I actually draw down to sort of particular lines here? Because I'd like to ask about the debtors, the actions. I really feel that we need some more information here because this is quite loose. We don't know what percentage arrears we have. Also, particularly in this sort of austere climate, particularly concerned that your credit control officers seem to be spending time paying money out other than trying to collect arrears. So I'd like to highlight that, please, and certainly have some information, numerical information on, for example, council tax business rates, what level of arrears we are trying to collect. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so the information on council tax arrears and business rates arrears actually is reported through the quarterly financial reports. And I know that they are pretty much in line with collection levels from last year.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I'm just looking through the details with on page 34, and it states on this section that they've got a team of 2 credit control officers, and they spend each has 1 day per week to contact debtors. Do you think that's enough, possibly, or is there something we could increase to increase revenue of debts?
So, as I said, our debtors at the moment are not deteriorating. If we were to spend more time on debt chasing, we could only do that by increasing the resource in the team. So at the moment, we're maintaining what I believe to be satisfactory service. Debtors aren't getting worse. We will continue to monitor it, and if that does get worse, then we will have to look at investing more time and resource in doing that. But at the moment, that seems an appropriate balance for the team.
Thank you. And Councillor Blackwell.
I'm going to come back on that because maintaining the equilibrium is fine, but the intention is to recover the monies and get people either on payment plans or support if needed. I think just maintaining levels, needs to be addressed, and we need to be working hard to with clients and to drive down these arrears.
Thank you, Councillor.
Certainly. I believe our debt provision is, we calculate it as being 0.6% of our annual council tax bill. And that's because we are very successful at dealing with our debtors and negotiating payment plans with them. Some of these payment plans, I agree, will go over several years, but we do collect a very, very high proportion of the money due to us.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm pleased with the discussion that's been regarding debt. I take your point. I think Councillor Gray knows better than probably I do, but I think about 97% wasn't it that we collected of the council tax, etc. But what concerns me, Chairman, that we are moving it into a different time. We've heard it a great deal about cost of living expenses, etc. And I wonder if, and can I just link it with 31, which I think I was going to mention with debts, project slippage due to the current workloads. And that does concern me that we've got 2 circumstances that we could be facing here that could influence this report ongoing. The first I'm concerned about is regarding debt. In the present circumstances, I think there's a big possibility, or there's a risk, should we say, that's the best word to use, there's a risk that this could get out of hand if we're not on top of it. And secondly, when we have small works, it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world, but nevertheless, project slippage due to current workloads. And I'm wondering how much that is influencing what will happen as we move on. So I consider these, Chairman, to be risks that we as members of this committee have got a right to mention.
Thank you, Councillor. Karen.
Councillor West, the issue around the small works contract is to do with our procurement team, and we are already actively looking at putting additional resource into there because, making sure that we're on top of our procurement and we are supporting our operations in getting tenders out as and when they are required is key. So we're already looking at tackling that. And yes, we agree that looking at the current circumstances, economic circumstances, which are affecting our council taxpayers, we are continuing to, as I say, to monitor that. I think the biggest early indicator will be if people start cancelling their direct debits, and that will be something that we do need to monitor and to act on.
Thank you, Beth. Any other questions on this agenda item? Thank you. There was a question regarding Appendix 2, which is the historic level record of closed audit actions since April 22, which Deborah's kindly provided for this meeting. The question was whether we need to see this same appendix in future meetings, or whether this, it's just a sort of was provided as a one-off, just to sort of enable us to catch up. Great for any thoughts on that, one way or the other? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I still quite like to see it. It's a good way of seeing what's been done and what's been closed. It's yeah, I quite like the idea still.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, obviously, I think between now and May, towards the end of the year, we can sort of carry on doing that. And obviously, in tandem with that, we will look at the quality of Appendix 1 and the details and that. And it may come to the point where, we don't need to go into that some level of detail in terms of the backstory. Sorry. Apologies, Councillor Sampson. Yeah. So we may need to, not need to, repeat this indefinitely, but maybe until we've perhaps had a look at the quality and quantity of Appendix 1, to make sure that is covering the concerns that councillors have expressed. Then we'll continue to provide Appendix 2 as well, just to give as full a picture as we can in terms of quantity. Okay. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions on this agenda item, we'll just record that you've had the opportunity to discuss and comment on the report that Deborah's provided. So we will now move on to the next item, which is item 5, appointment of an independent member to the Corporate Governance Committee. And I would like to invite Deborah again to introduce this item. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you again, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek committee's view on the appointment of an independent member to this committee. Obviously, as Corporate Governance Committee, this is the one that discharges the responsibility as an audit committee on behalf of the council. Just to give you a little run through, if you haven't already read all of this, the national context for this is there is no legislation requiring us at the moment to have an independent member on this board, but it would be good governance to do it, and it will be coming in soon. Both the Redmond report, which looked at local audit and governance and criticised both of those, made some recommendations, and it's supported by CIPFA as well, to recommend that we have at least that we have 2 co-opted independent members on an audit committee. We're not recommending here that we go for 2, that we're thinking possibly go for 1 with a later one later on to add for sort of continuity and election planning. As I say, so it's not mandatory at the moment, but the quote is that it's as soon as legislation allows, so it's in motion already. If we do decide to have an independent member, then it will need to go to full council, so we're going to try and put that through for the February council meeting, but there's quite a lot to do before that, because there will be a change to the constitution to allow us to have these co-opted members on there. So I think, just to summarise what it's got in the report, it will strengthen the commitment and the transparency of committee, which is all what underpins the good governance that you're striving for. The benefits I've listed in there is the new approach to committee discussion, so it will hopefully broaden the depth of your discussion there. It should bring in extra knowledge and expertise, possibly linking around skills gaps that you may have. Linking then to an effectiveness audit. If we carry out one of those, it may bolster up your gaps. It should provide independent challenge to the internal control framework and the wider governance processes. It should reinforce transparency of the committee itself and the neutrality of committee. And just touching again on the election side of things, we should get the continuity in the corporate memory. What we don't want to happen is that members leave and that flow of knowledge and discussion that you've had on some of these things that you're dealing with will be lost if people leave at the same time. So you can have that independent member to smooth over that election period as well. There is attached to it on Appendix A, I think it is a person spec or a draft role profile, I think I've called it. That is one I've lifted from another council actually. just to give us a sort of starter to look at what we would want. I think they're probably pretty much the same going forward. I know, Chair, you will have to take it to council, won't you? So, but it's up to committee now to decide what your views are as to whether you support having an independent member or not. So, if you have any questions for me.
Questions on this item, members? I'm sure you must have some. Councillor Gray.
Well, not so much a question, but really some observations, if I may, Chair. I mean, firstly, I support this. I think it's a good practice. I think it would be good to have external people bringing their expertise, because some of us, or most of us in this room, who are elected members, are sort of enthusiastic amateurs in this space. Should we describe it like that? So I think that'd be good. So the one question that, probably two questions: who's going to interview these people?
I think there's a piece in the report actually that says about giving that responsibility down to a panel, which would have been the Section 151, myself, debatably. Who else was in there? Was it the monitoring officer?
No. Chair and Vice Chair.
Chair and Vice Chair, of course, yeah. And anybody else who wants to join in, I guess. If you have any interviewing skills.
Sorry, you have another question, Councillor Gray?
I did, yes. Okay, so well, thanks for that. I didn't spot that, but thank you for pointing it out. The second question I've got is I totally understand what you're saying about having some institutional memory that spans elections. But if we appoint someone in May for a term of 3 years, they will be leaving it precisely the next time we have an election. So that doesn't actually fulfill the criteria that you set out there. I'm not entirely sure why we would appoint them for a term of 3 years. I mean, presumably that's some kind of best practice, but it doesn't quite achieve what you set out to do there. You're working on the assumption that they're going to get reappointed at the end of that, or still want to do the job on an ongoing basis. And I'm not. I just think it's unfortunate that, having made that point, they will be potentially leaving at the exact point that we're all up for re-election or whatever we're going to do next.
Yeah, I think possibly you're completely right, and possibly May is not the right month. We did think about having a second person in, and that was when we started realizing about the continuity at that point. But I take your point, if we don't have that second person, then it does floor the argument slightly. But we can consider that. I think it's going to take us longer anyway.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. I think SIPFA recommendation is for 2 independent members. And so if we did one now and then perhaps do a second one in a year, 18 months, 2 years, whatever it may be, we'll then ensure we've got that continuity going forwards.
Thank you. Yes, that's Councillor Cadbury.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure, maybe I missed something. I just wanted to ask the appointment. I think I welcome it to happen, because it will add this committee with some powerful ideas from outside. But what I wanted to know is it going to be at a voluntary basis, or is it going to be budgeted?
So that's a good question as well. I think it will probably have to be budgeted. Not that there is a budget, but I think it probably will have to be. I think we put in there that the independent person that Lisa employs for code of conduct reasons, they're paid a small allowance. And I think this one would have to be at least that, really. I have had a quick look at some of the other independent members, or certainly the adverts for those, and it ranges considerably between 1,000 up to 3,000 or 4,000 a year. So it's something we're going to have to consider, and it will go to the remuneration panel, is it?
Yeah, Chair, if I can come in from a member's allowance point of view. So the lead and independent deputy independent person appointed for the purposes of code of conduct inquiries. So they are remunerated and considered as part of the members' allowances review, which we've just conducted. So again, this is a new proposal on the table from a council constitution point of view. So I think as it stands at the moment, I think it's difficult for us to say we'll pay them X amount. I think, again, most authorities would take this through their independent remuneration panel. It's unfortunate that we have just met as an independent remuneration panel, but that's not to say that it can't be factored into the process. So again, we don't have a starting point, but potentially the starting point is our independent person. The members' allowances review has confirmed the members' allowance for the independent and the deputy. So whether you use that as a starting point and have that discussion.
Thank you, Lisa. Any further questions on this agenda item? Okay, thank you. In which case, we need to, I need to ask you if you're happy to approve the 4 recommendations that we have here. So just to reiterate.
Chair, if I may just come in, just following on from Councillor Harvey's comment about an additional member. Obviously, before we move to the recommendations, the recommendations will obviously be a recommendation onto council for you to present. But recommendation B only refers to the appointment of 1 non-voting independent member, and you were suggesting the incorporation of an additional member in, say, a year's time. Obviously, the way the recommendations are drafted at the moment wouldn't allow you provision to do that when we make those changes to the Constitution. So you may want to consider proposing an amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes. Councillor Harvey, would you be happy to propose an amendment to B, recommendation B?
Absolutely happy to propose that. Thank you.
So this will say then, rather than the appointment of a non-voting member, the appointment of 2. Yeah. Is that okay, Habs? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you're happy with that amendment? Councillor Taylor.
Could I just interject a little bit? Following from what Councillor Gray said, could we make the term for 6 months post the next election? Would that make sense? So that we've got the continuity, and then we can start the recruitment process if the person wants to leave again.
Can I come in? Sorry, so through you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the way this is obviously works, this is a recommendation subject to what you agree at the meeting tonight. It'll be a recommendation to council that the intention will be to take to council on the 22nd of February. But the process following that will obviously, you'll need to go out to advert. Well, subject to that, we'll have to take it through the IRP to confirm the allowance. Have to go out to advert. And inevitably that will take time. So I don't think the report actually suggests a start date as it stands at the moment, but potentially you could be talking 6 months down the line anyway, really, that would take you over, May 2026 in effect, really. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so here we're identifying the principle rather than the precise timescales. Councillor Clark.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Will the deputy be paid a retainer, or will he be paid equal amount to the number 1?
I think getting slightly confused. So I referred to an independent and deputy independent person. So they are in respect of code of conduct complaints. So this is referring to 1 up to 2 standalone non-voting independent members. So there isn't a principal and a deputy. So they are both appointed. If you appoint up to 2, so they'll be appointed both in their same capacity to sit on the committee.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions? Are we all happy with that? Councillor Gray.
I'm happy to sort of take this under any other business, but I think I might just say that we're making a recommendation to council to amend the constitution. From what I can see in this paper, it doesn't look like we've kind of given it the sort of belt and braces recommendation that we would actually be putting in front of council. There's some broad principles here under 5.6, but for example, who confirms the appointment? This panel, council, the managing director. So I'm totally in support of the motion, but we are, as a corporate governance panel, making a recommendation to council to amend its constitution, and we don't have in front of us all of the details by which we're going to do that. Now, I don't want to hold the process up, but I want to make the point that we're, and I'm looking at Lisa here, unless I'm mistaken, I don't see in front of here all of the detail that you would need to include to ensure that this whole process is going to work constitutionally and everyone knows where they stand. Am I being unreasonable or not?
Through you, Chair. Just referring to 5.6 in the report, there is a suggestion, obviously, an appointment panel set up with the chair and the vice chair. So in effect, perhaps we haven't been explicit enough to say, as we would do, you would do a point. We sometimes have delegations in consultation with the chair and the vice chairman of the relevant committee. So maybe reading it, I understand the point, and I do take the point that I think perhaps, the chair and the vice chair of this committee would obviously be involved in the process, but I think it's, from what you're saying, Councillor Gray, is that it's the confirmation of it. So it's almost, is it better to have a with a report back to this committee?
Through you, Chair.
Please
Sorry.
carry on, Councillor.
So the point that Councillor Taylor was kind of making was, when does this person join? So when it's 3 years from when they join, we don't really, do they join when they go through an interview process and you guys say, woohoo, this is the person we want? Or do we confirm as a panel that we're happy with you? So that's just the question that I've got around the detail here. Sorry to be awkward.
Sorry, through you, Chair, again. Sorry, I know it's not my report, but but I think I completely agree with you in terms of in terms of the timescale. There isn't a specified timescale on this because we're not required to do this at the moment. So I think we do have time on our side potentially to make sure that we have all the the I's dotted and T's crossed. I think so. I'm again, it's not my report to make some changes to, but again, that's not to say that we can't bring this back to another meeting rather than take it through to council with a recommendation at the moment to make sure that we've got everything covered in terms of picking up the points that the members have raised in terms of the actual timescale when it's implemented from. This may enable us to have more information then in terms of obviously the allowance that's proposed through the IRP as well, and again firming up the decision-making process and whether members collectively, whether you want this to come back to committee to sign off before it goes to as a recommendation to council. I'm thinking aloud at the moment, but just picking on Councillor Gray's comments.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, Councillor Gray.
Well, might I, sorry, Chairman, for making so many interjections, but might I make a suggestion with your permission? I don't want to hold up the process, so I think it's perfectly reasonable that you could take this offline and circulate to the committee via email what is actually going to be proposed to council, just so that we've all got sight of it and we can give you our reflections. I'm sure the committee will be happy to delegate to you to bring the report through to council, but I think it would be nice for us all to at least see what that was and have an opportunity to influence your thinking. Is that do you feel that that's an appropriate way of possibly dealing with that?
It's a way, yes. I'm not. Yeah, I'm slightly in two minds as to whether we should pursue it that way or whether we should. I mean, is your feeling is that ideally we ought to flesh this out a little bit more in terms of the detail, or before we actually take it on forward, or?
I'm confident that we've got the broad outline of what we're trying to achieve here. I'm just saying that from a point of view of amending the constitution, it just needs a little bit more detail. I'm happy for you. I am personally happy for you to work with whoever you need to work with to come up with that wording. I just think it would be courteous to circulate that amongst the group. So that if anyone had any observations, they were able to make that to you before it went into the full council report.
Okay, well, I'm very happy to go that way if that's satisfactory from your perspective, Councillor. Sorry, Lisa. Lisa, come in first, please. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, through you, Chair. Sorry, Councillor West, just picking up on that. So I think maybe you can have an additional recommendation, to give delegation to the Chair and Vice Chair in consultation with the other members of the committee to finalise the detail prior to the recommendation to Council, something along those lines. So I'm thinking off the top of my head, but
Yeah, I think it'd be good to formalise that in terms of a fifth bullet point in the proposal. Sorry, Councillor West, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the only points I want to make is the reason why I think we're having this discussion for is the executive's summary, the third paragraph. The government has further stated that we're making audit committees with at least one independent member a mandatory requirement. So I asked a question, have our government, obviously very reliable, have our government actually given any good practice on how to achieve this? Have they made any recommendations? Or have they just said that we're going to do it when we get time, but we've got no good practice? Because a lot of this committee, I thought, went through good practice, Chairman, that whatever we do, there's normally the CIFRA, is it? That they make recommendations which we should treat as good practice. And it just wondered to me, the government have further stated making audit committees with at least one independent member mandatory, then I would have thought they would follow that up by good practice and suggesting how we carry it out. Has it happened?
I'll take that one. So the Department for Levelling Up, it says in there, it does say that, so there is funding that's been given out for new burdens relating to the appointment of new members, so of independent members, sorry. So that's as a result of the Redmond report. It was a recommendation of the government's report by Redmond, and they're supporting it by giving the money out to fund it. So that's the government's standpoint on it in terms of best practice. They're giving the money out to do it, and CIFRA are backing it up, saying that they agree with it too, as well as, and they've changed their guidance to say to have 2 people on there. So they're both in line with each other, that they agree there should be an independent member. Not as I haven't seen any further detail on how to set it up, but I think that's down to each individual council to just appoint a person that they feel is fit. I don't see that there's any draft role profile that I've attached on here. Certainly hasn't come from government as far as I'm aware.
I mean, presumably we have some opportunity to look at precedent in terms of other authorities who already have independent members on their audit committees. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I can't tell you how many people do already have them. I think it says in here that there's 40%. 40% was found by some survey or something that for local authorities. The only one I know of around here is City has one, and has had one for a long time. So it will be. We're just sort of almost getting ahead of the curve here. And if it is recommended, it's, why wait? Why not just recognise that it is good governance practice to do so, and get the ball rolling, really.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Are you okay? If not, then just reviewing where we are at. My understanding is that we have recommendation. I'll just go through the recommendations as I understand them now. So A, to note the additional guidance provided on the appointment of independent members to audit committees. B, to endorse the recommendation to Council for the appointment of 2 non-voting independent members to the Corporate Governance Committee as set out in paragraph 5.6 of the report now submitted. C, to endorse a variation to Part 3 of the Council's Constitution as outlined in paragraph 5.6 and to the report now submitted. And D, that the Council be requested to make the necessary amendments to the Council's Constitution. And then I think we're adding E, that we delegate to the Chair and Vice Chair of the Committee to finalise the detail and the changes that are required to be made. Does that capture it satisfactorily for councillors?
Well, and you're going to circulate that so that we can tell you that we're happy with those final recommendations, I think.
We can do, yes, but I mean, as I say, that's those are the minor variations on what you've got on paper as the start of this agenda item 5. Yeah, Deborah.
I just wanted to just mention in there that whilst we've said the 3 years, of course we can do it for 2 years. It's not a requirement to do it for 3. It's just a suggested, but it might be something to consider.
Thank you, Lisa.
Chair, if I may, just to firm up, I think you need that additional recommendation that the authority be delegated to the chair and the vice chairman in consultation with other members of the committee as well. I've just scribbled down to confirm the level of remuneration, the final job description, the commencement date, and term of office for the member appointed. That's my initial thoughts. Rather than that. Yeah, I think that picks up the comments that the members have raised. So I think you need this needs to come prior to obviously any recommendations going to council. So that delegation exists for yourself and Councillor Harvey in conjunction, not in consultation, in conjunction with other members of the committee.
Thank you, Lisa.
Does that?
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, obviously, this is a non-elected member, and assuming that really for them it will just be a job. So effectively, although we would perhaps try and agree a duration of office, I'm sure that they could easily terminate that at their will. So we have no control of their duration of service. Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Chairman. I think the discussion was in terms of like our lead and deputy independent person we do for the code of conduct. So they are appointed on a 3-yearly cycle. So it's confirmed at council on a 3-yearly basis, subject to obviously those members, those individuals wanting to continue with this role. So again, I think the point made is when we go out to advert, we will be going out to advert to appoint an independent person. So I think when we go out to advert, we do need to specify. It's a bit like a fixed term contract. It's It's not an open ended contract. I don't think we want to say it will be forever because again, on both sides, you want the ability to be able to say, right, well, if we say it's for 2 years, maybe that appointment wasn't an appropriate appointment after 2 years. So I think we do need to specify a timescale on it as opposed to saying we leave it open ended. I think that's the reason why we say it at the term of office. So,
thank you, Lisa. Is that okay? You can clarify that. Yeah, Councillor West.
Everything seems to go in a circle. This is not the first time we've done this, is it? We've had 2 independent members on scrutiny, haven't we? So it's not anything brand new. It's just another government thing, another soundbite. But the point is that we got, I think, a lady from Abbotsford and a gentleman from Gomanchester, and they turned out to be very effective. And all of a sudden, we seem to drop it on scrutiny, but they just seemed to serve their term of 4 years, didn't they?
through your chair, yeah, Councillor West has got a very good memory. So yes, we did. We did have that on, but again, that was removed from the Constitution. So again, the provision doesn't exist for scrutiny now. So.
Just subtle changes that go on an ongoing basis. Yes, thank you. Any further questions, comments, or are we ready to move to voting on this recommendation? So, just to check with Habs, are you okay with the recommendations as revised?
Yes, I am, Chair. So just for clarity, I'll just read it out. So the recommendations A to D as per the report, with the inclusion of E, which will be a delegation to the Chair and Vice Chair in consultation with the Corporate Governance Committee to finalise the details, which will include the level of remuneration, term of office and length of appointment prior to the formal recommendation to Council. Start date as well, so I'll include that in the detail.
Okay, so I hope that's clear to everybody now. So can I see a show of hands of those in favour of the 5 elements of the recommendation? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you all for your contributions to that item. So moving on now finally to item 6, Corporate Governance Committee Progress Report. Now, can I ask Habs to handle this item for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Short one, really. There haven't been any uses of the waiver procedure since the last meeting, so there's nothing to report.
Thank you very much, Habs. In that case, I'll declare the meeting closed and wish those of you who've still got time for a dram of Burns night before the night disappears. Councillor Gray.
I'm not sure if this is the moment to raise it because it's sort of talking about the progress report. We mentioned, I think, last time at this committee, and it was mentioned in the last full council meeting about a review of the Constitution, a more thorough review of the Constitution in the light of various things that are happening. And I'm not clear. I mean, I kind of expected it to see that under agenda item 6 as something that even if we haven't started that work, we have considered it, we are considering it, and we have a timescale within which we're going to do that. Am I mistaken, Chair, as to that is where I would expect to see that, or how do I progress that otherwise?
So I presume you're referring to Councillor Martin's question at full council last time. So the director has replied to Councillor Martin. I'm not quite sure what the process is for circulating that response across council. Can you help me with this, perhaps, at all?
I can't recall, if I'm being honest. Well, we'll have to dig out the detail, and if you're content, I think Lisa might have an answer.
Okay, Lisa, thank you.
Through you, Chair. A response was provided by the Managing Director to Councillor Martin. Again, it hasn't been circulated to all members, but I can summarise the content of that email in effect. So obviously the question was asked at Council in terms of a review of the Constitution and referring to Councillor Gray's question. There is no plan for a current review, but as I say, the Constitution is constantly under review. Updates are provided in year as well, and we will update that accordingly. The Constitution, as it stands at the moment, follows the LGA, the Local Government Association Model Code of for the Constitution. Say we review it, and again, if we need to update it, we will do so in year. There is no budget provision for a full review of the Constitution as it stands. So if members are minded that they want to have a whole scale review of the Constitution, then again, it would be subject to a budget bid, but that's not to say that we can't do it. So, but again, if this committee is the correct committee to consider any discussion on a review of the Constitution. But again, so it's perhaps something to keep as a live item on the agenda. And if there's anything in particular, I know a lot of the discussion and the question that Council was in particular in relation to motions and the handling of motions at Council. So whether it's more a training issue or whether it is whether there's anything specifically that members want to discuss and raise for consideration for amendment at the Constitution. So again, I'm happy to, again, whether you want to keep it as a live item or whether members want to take it away and consult their groups. So.
Thank you, Lisa. Obviously, this is something we need officer input to understand the way forward is. You know, we can, as you say, take it on as an item onto this agenda. But as you say, there are ramifications to the if we got into a lot of involved work, complicated and time-consuming work on that, then there would be ramifications to that. So it's a question of what is the sensible thing to do, really, in terms of. So we may need to perhaps bring it back to the next meeting and decide what the next steps are, I would suggest. If that's okay with you, Councillor Gray? Okay, thank you. Right, so once again, I think that's the end of business tonight, so I wish you all a good evening. Thank you.